So why do we need clinical research? So we already know that, in fact, when we think about drug therapies, that a lot of drugs really work well, but quite a few of the drugs don't seem to work well. And actually, some people might say some of the newer drugs have been more of a disappointment than a success, because they come onto the market with great hope, and then they seem to get pulled off the market just as fast. So, for example, even with very good drugs like rosiglitazone or Avandia, which is used to treat certain forms of diabetes, there's been concerns that, for example, they may actually increase the risk for cardiovascular disease. And other drugs keeps getting pulled off the market. The latest one, for example, this drug in November of 2007. So in part, developing drugs is actually quite difficult because you have to screen thousands of chemicals to be able to bring one to the market. So unfortunately, this battery is not working so well, but suffice to say, most companies, when they try to make a compound into a drug, they have to screen or test tens or thousands of chemicals, of which a few of them may actually end up being tested in animals, and then even a smaller number being assessed in humans. And we all hear about how important drugs should be studied in humans, and then the drugs that are really useful need to reach the marketplace. If you look at this graph here, you can see, so on the left side is how many years it takes for a drug to reach the market, and how many compounds a company has to screen. And then when it comes to the clinical side, you can see that what is referred to as the human clinical tests in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, which are just increasing levels of complexity in terms of first dose in man, all the way to, is this drug as good or better than a competitor compound. It takes quite a few years, and in fact, hundreds of millions of dollars are spent trying to get to one compound that may be useful for people. So this really then asks the question, well, why is it that we can't make lots of really good drugs really fast? That's in part because we really need clinical research capabilities, and I'll show you why this is the case. We know not all drugs work well in people, and those of us who see patients in our clinics, I think sometimes our patients think we can kind of look at you and go, oh, you need 5 milligrams, or you need 10 milligrams, but it's actually usually not the case. We're not that clever. Just by looking at someone, I can't really predict what the dose of drug you need should be. So typically we prescribe the average dose of a medication. And that's in part because we can't look inside our bodies. We can't really know what's going on. So for example, if we were to take two people that looked quite similar, so these are two what I call very transparent people. You can see right through them, probably like some of your friends. So you give them the same dose of a medication. One of the things we don't do in the clinic is, for example, actually take blood samples and measure drug levels. So you might see that the first person on top might have a very high drug level, and the person at the bottom might have a normal drug level in their blood. But if you have a very high drug level, and let's say this were an anti-hypertensive or blood pressure lowering medication, you might actually, if you could measure blood pressure, the first person might have a significant reduction in blood pressure and may end up in the emergency room, whereas the second person did just fine. So this says to us that you can give the same dose of a medication, and two people look the same, but one of them can have a profound side effect or toxicity. So given the time constraints, I don't want to really bore you with lots of stuff, but I do want to tell you some of the exciting things that we're hoping to do and we're doing right here in London. So one of the things Lawson, LHSC have really moved forward on is this notion that in fact we can actually be the center of excellence in this area of clinical research. And one of the reasons why I was recruited to London was this potential to actually be able to run this type of new research, clinical research infrastructure. So we're going to be building this state-of-the-art clinical research center that really says, we shouldn't just study only healthy volunteers. We should also be able to study our patients. So this notion of patient-oriented research. we should have clinical research capabilities that really says all of those of us involved in basic clinical pharmacy, nursing, physio, should have the opportunity to conduct clinical research through a resource such as this. And of course, some of the things we're hoping to offer through these type of capabilities is that not just that we'll be able to study our patients or volunteers, but we'll have certain kind of core technologies, the ability to measure drug levels from drops of blood or saliva, hair, urine, with the machinery that it really didn't exist even 5-10 years ago in terms of the ability to really measure at a concentration that is unheard of, as well as these genetic testing or DNA testing arrays or chips that can actually look for genetic variations in all of us that could actually affect how we handle drugs. So this notion of personalized medicine based on our genetic makeup. And we want this facility to be really available to all those here in London, and really starting to get away from this notion of silos. In fact, that everyone who wants to do these type of clinical research has to be able to do so. So the exciting thing is that construction has started. It's taken a while, but it's moving. So this is just to show you what it looks like. So the place itself is at UH. And it's actually at the, now it's the Lindros Legacy Research Building. And our floor will be on the 5th floor of this glass building. I don't know if you know, most of the floors are just empty shells. From the outside, it looks like it's all done, but actually, only some of the floors have been finished. Ours will be on the 5th floor. And until about April, it looked like this. I don't have lots more photos to show you, but we're hoping to then start to move people into this place so that hopefully by end of next year, we'll have a fully completed state-of-the-art clinical research center. So I think this is it for my part. Thank you.